Hi, good morning. Thanks for joining today's webinar. My name's Andy Hemming. I look after the support process here at Textlocal, and over the next 20 minutes I'll be helping you understand the basics in terms of how you can load data into the system, send a simple text message, explain some key functionality in the system, and then post-send we'll show you how to pull some useful reports from the system. We will be asking for some audience participation along the way, so for those that will wish to take part, please have your handsets ready to do so when asked. I'll start by just giving you a little bit of housekeeping in terms of the platform. So the platform itself is an online solution. It's run completely through the website, so it's cloud-based. So you'll access the account through www.textlocal.com. To log into your account, it's your email address as your username, and obviously the password you chose when you originally signed up. Once you've popped those details in, this is the first screen that you'll see. This is just your home screen. It just covers off some very basic reporting stats over a 30-day window. To navigate around the platform, you use the navigation bar across the top. It's just a case of hovering over a header and selecting from a drop-down list. You service the platform with credits. Credits represent messages on a one-to-one basis in the UK. We sell credits in bundles from 100 upwards, and we operate a sliding scale with the emphasis around the more you buy, the cheaper the rate, and that will stand somewhere between 4.9p and 2p, depending on those volumes. They're the only associated costs with the platform. The majority of the functionality that we'll show you throughout today's demonstration are completely free to use, and you'd use those obviously as a way of engaging with customers in a more interactive way through smartphone technology. So I'm going to start by showing you how to create a contact group. So you'll come to contacts, you'll come to create group, you give the group a name, and you can have as many groups as you wish, there's no limit there. And once you've input that name, it takes you through to the next screen. So for those that have used mail merge before, we do offer a similar facility. As you'll see in front of you now, the headers number, first name and last name, as well as 3 additional custom fields. And number, first name, last name is self-explanatory. Custom 1, 2 and 3, you actually set the criteria for that. This is a one-fit-all solution. So, you know, your custom 1 might be different to another customer's custom 1 field. But as a quick example of how this might work, we do a bit of work in the insurance sector. They might use this service as a renewal policy, and they would say something like, hi, first name, car registration custom 1, due to expire custom 2, renewal prices custom 3. So clearly it does need a bit of data manipulation from your end, and obviously it's only as good as the information it's fed, but nevertheless quite a handy feature for sending out mass broadcast, but when the text is received, it's individual to a specific customer. To get that data into the system, it's add, paste, upload. There's 3 options. Best practice normally is to create an Excel spreadsheet. The spreadsheet's a CSV to be compatible with our platform. If you are going down the route of using personalization, it's a column per personalized field, or if it was just numbers, you just need to load in a load of numbers under column A. That's absolutely fine. Next option you've got is the paste list feature, which is just as it sounds. It's copying from a CRM system your end and pasting into the box. As you'll see from the little warning sign above, this will only accept numbers. So if you were looking to use the merge feature, you couldn't use the paste list option to input the data. And then finally, you've got the add single feature, which, as suggests, is adding them in one by one. So clearly the least favorable option, but it's quite handy to add to existing groups or create much smaller groups. So ultimately, that's how you would load existing data that you've already got your end into our system. And naturally, for everybody on today's call as a business, you will be competing with like-minded businesses, either locally, nationally, possibly even internationally. So I'm sure you've all got aspirations to grow your business, and compete with the competition. Typically, you would do that through potentially purchasing data, which obviously is quite costly to the business. In addition to that, you generally targeting uninterested parties or people that don't recognize you as a business. So it's normally quite hard to get a return using cold or raw data. So there is a way that you can build a database through text through a service that's called a keyword shortcode. Now everybody gets a free keyword and shortcode as part of the sign up. Now obviously as it's free, it is randomly generated. So in this case it would be A7GH, so it has no bearing on the actual business. So in a live scenario, you would probably have a word that's referable to the business or campaign. So as you can see here, I've set one up which obviously replicates today's webinar. And in short, what this service does, you would advertise this in channels where your target audience would see it. So that would encompass things like social media, direct mail, leaflet drops, etc., etc. And ultimately, you take a two-pronged approach with this. You go down a route of text in for offers, promotions, competitions, or you could say something like text in for more information about what we do. Within the settings tab, you can set up auto responses. So if it was the offers or promotions stance, it could be, please quote this code at the till to get the discount, or winner announced shortly. On the flip side of that, if it was more of an informative tool, it could be, here's more information, PDF document for more information about our services. Obviously, once those people have texted in, the platform's now recorded their number. Obviously, organically over time, you're going to build a database, which is an opted-in database. So in theory, when you reuse the data for generic campaigns, you should find that the response rate from that is much, much better. Now, I'm going to ask anybody that wants to take part to text into the webinar service, just so you can see this service working. So if you just open up a new message, in the toolbar, just type 60777, so that's 60777, and then in the message content, simply just type the word webinar, that's W-E-B-I-N-A-R. I'll just give everybody a couple of seconds to catch up, and then we'll continue with the demonstration. Okay, great. So hopefully for those that have taken part by now, you should have received the bounce back text, which, as you can see in front of you here, will just replicate what we've pre-prepared. You'll notice that there are some clickable links in there that will take you through to a landing page where you can download several brochures about our products and service, as well as a PDF document, again just showcasing the service. So naturally now you've loaded an existing database in, or over time you've built your own database through that keyword shortcode concept. So naturally now you want to send a text message to these customers. So you'll do that by going to send a text message. Any group that you've created will automatically appear on the left-hand side. By putting the dot inside the circle, that selects everybody in the group. If you don't want to send everybody in the group, if you hit the expand option, what it will do is it will give you a drop-down, and obviously at that point you could obviously manually select who would need the message and who wouldn't. Now the right-hand side, this is where we really start to show you the additional features and functionality within the platform. So the first of those benefits is the ability to use a name rather than a number when sending a text message. The advantage of that is obviously if people can instantly relate to where that text has come from, they're more likely to read the content, and obviously if the offer or the call to action within that message is good, you'll generally find the response rate is much better, arguably, than you would if it was from a number that wasn't necessarily recognized. So obviously the default in this case is set as Textlocal. It is very easy to change. It's just a case of adding a sender in, free type in there what you would like up to 11 characters. The message would go from that name on that particular occasion, and the next time you go back into the message, it would revert back to the default, but obviously keeps a record of what you've used for easy selection. You're now ready to start preparing the text message. Now, on the basis you are looking to use personalization, obviously that wouldn't be very good because not everybody's name in this group is Andy. So what we would actually do is revert to the bottom right-hand corner, hit the Insert Merge Fields button. If you cast your mind back to how we created our contact group, you'll relate to these headers now, and it's just a case of hitting a specific header, and what that will now do is do a hashtag lookup under how we've populated the data and change accordingly. You would then just fill out the rest of the content to help make the message make sense, which leads us on nicely now to me being able to share some best practices with you. So typically some stats around mobile, I mean you can expect a 97% of messages will be read within the first 5 seconds, a 98% open rate. Typically you would expect a 32% response rate versus 5% for email. I think if we look at the catalysts behind that are that emails aren't checked as regularly these days, there's spam filters on a handset, clearly direct mail generally isn't read these days. With a text message, even to delete the message, you've physically got to read it to delete it. And obviously we're all carrying our phones with us around pretty much all day, every day. And the most important thing is there's no spam filter with a handset. So it makes SMS the most powerful communication tool that there is. That said, obviously if you were spending X to get Y, and obviously you weren't getting that 32% response rate or more, clearly you would want some sort of fallback plan to be able to target or retarget that database again. As this message stands, there's no way that we can have any insight in terms of how that message has been perceived. Because we've used the sender name, the customer can't reply to the text message. So in theory, if the response rate was lacking, we would have to retarget that whole database again, which would clearly be a waste of time, effort, and money. So typically what we would need to do on that text to enhance the message is to put some sort of call to action in there. So the most obvious call to action would be a contact number. And then finally, you would want to put some sort of clickable link into the message. Now, the reason you would do that is that generally as a customer, if you're interested in a particular message and there's something there to interact with, more often than not, you will click that link. Now, within that link will be a reporting statistic that post-send you can pull stats from the system that will say, okay, I've just sent 100 messages. Of the 100 messages I sent, this many people clicked my link, and here's the names and the numbers of the people that clicked. So you could now take a two-pronged approach. You could obviously monitor those for a couple of days. Clearly, you want to see if customers come back organically to you before you have to give something away. And then after that, you could say, well, okay, this customer's clicked. They've not, made contact with us. So let's be a bit more strategic now, and let's send that customer maybe a text message with a further offer on it. Or if I've got the time and resource, potentially maybe I export that report, pass it on to a sales team who could now make outbound calls to that customer. It's not a cold call. They've been, they're on an opted-in database anyway, and they've already been warmed up for a message, and they have interacted with that link. So they should be quite receptive to that. And hopefully by using those best practices, you should find that, you get even more from the service. And it's very important that you do that, because some research that we found is that 50% of people that are interested in a text message or a marketing campaign of sorts won't go on to make contact. And I'm sure, everybody on this call today can relate to that. I'm sure we've all, been, captured by a TV advert maybe in the past. We've been interested, but for whatever reason, we've changed our minds or forgotten, etc. So those links and attachments are represented in the bottom left-hand corner. As I say, they are free functionality, so they're not costing you anything extra to use. I'll just very briefly run through each one with you now. We do further webinars in relation to certain aspects of the system, so watch out for those, and we'll probably spend a bit more time in each of the links. But for today's benefit, we've got the attachment tool. Now that just replicates the attachment feature on an email, so that would allow you to attach anything from a PDF or a Word document right through to image or logo. It's also a great character save. You may or may not be aware that it's 160 characters per text message. Sometimes it's not always possible to keep the content to 160. So rather than going into a second or a third message, which is doubling or trebling the cost, to keep the cost down, what you could do is attach a Word document which has got the same content in there, and then you just send somebody a very basic message asking them to click a link for more details. Obviously, once they do that, they'll see the site of the same message in any case. You've then got the mobile web page feature. That's the ability to create landing pages. So it's not to be confused with creating a website. It's just a landing page that's specific to the outbound message. It's created in its own section here, and again, it's something that we do in a future webinar. So as I said before, please look out for future invites on that. You've then got the most basic form of link which you can use, which is just a reference to a website. So it's just a case of typing that URL in there and inserting the link. As you can see, we convert that into a bit.ly link, and it's got the advanced track on there. So it's quite handy to use as a reference point at the end of any message. You've then got the survey tool, which does what it says on the tin. Again, like the mobile web page feature, it has its own section here, which is where you would pre-create the survey. But it's a way of engaging with customers for feedback on products and services. But the service does also double up as a data capture service, so it's not just about creating surveys, it's the ability to create forms that would allow sort of customer participation, let's say, directly through a handset, where they could leave details for callbacks, register interest in products, maybe registering interest in coming along to an event, and so on. Just think anything data capture, and the system will be able to handle that as inbound inquiries. And then finally, you've got the ticketing service. Again, like the other functionality, has its own section here. Again, we do specific webinars on the vouchers and tickets. So again, look out for the future invites on that. But in summary, what the vouchers and ticket does is the ability to create one-time tickets with unique codes per customer, and that can be for one-time redemption. So if you think, physical ticket to an event, whether that be, a concert or a sporting event, or one-time redemption for a product offer, discount, and so on. And then finally, you've got the loyalty side of that. So rather than the physical, Costa Coffee card, let's say, that's in your wallet, that could be stored on the passbook or pass wallet on your handset. Obviously, each time you purchase, it's scanned for redemption, and then obviously you set permutations to say on the 10th time you'll get a free coffee or whatever it may be. That can then be fired out automatically. You've got your character count down here. So as we've just discussed, it's 160 characters per message. If you do go over 160, the system will warn you. It will send it as one message, but it will charge it at however many credits that equates to. So just bear in mind the attachment tool as we've already discussed to help you with that. You can manually schedule messages, which is quite a handy feature. You can schedule up to a year in advance. So if you knew a message needed to go out this afternoon, but you were in a meeting at that point, you could have logged on beforehand and predetermined that message to go out at a selected date and time. You've got a free opt-out service that we run for you. Now, our advice on this would be, if you are canvassing for some things, or you're marketing a product or a service, people have the right not to receive the message, so please include the opt-out path. If it's just a service-related message, as an existing customer, why would I not want to know your opening times over Easter or Christmas, or at my appointment date, or my service is due, etc. So on a service-based message, no real need to use the opt-out, but certainly on a marketing message, please do. From an admin perspective, we take care of it all for you. So if you were sending out, say, 100 messages and 20 people opted out, the next time you log into the system, there'd only be 80 in that group. We don't delete the data. Clearly, it's yours to review at any time, and you do that by going to contacts and opt-outs. That list is also exportable, so if it needs to be cross-referenced with a CRM system your end, it can be done. You're now ready to send the text message. So you'll always get a confirmation of who that's going from and to, the cost, and obviously just a confirmation of the actual message. And then obviously once that message is gone, we're working with UK2 on networks, so that means in simple terms is that the messages will be sent and delivered within 3 to 5 seconds. For everybody that took part, by now you should have received that text message, and again you'll see that you're able to interact with that link. So naturally, now we've discussed the benefit of using links. What I'm now going to do is show you sort of post-send how you can pull some reports in terms of seeing who's clicked through. So you do that by going to Reports and All Reports. You then go to Short Links. You'll be able to see sight of the link that you've used. It's then just a case of viewing the stats on that particular link. What you're now going to get is a plotted line graph of who's clicked and when they've clicked, so you can target in sequential order. A breakdown of screen resolution and device type. I'm often asked why we give this information and what sort of bearing does it have for yourselves. The simple answer is that it's helping you profile your database. So we've discussed that you can create landing pages, data capture forms, survey tools, and so on. If you can profile that the majority of your database has an iPhone, well, why not tailor those pages to suit that type of handset? In addition to that, it's also saying if you're getting a high click-through rate, you should perhaps start using more and more links because your client base like interacting that way. Now, if you then go on to export this report, I can't do this for data protection reasons because it will have client data on there, and that's where you would see sight of the names and the numbers of the people that clicked, which in theory is a ready-made sort of sales sheet. So as I said before, you can now either target that by a phone call with a sales team, or you could load that database back into the system as a contact group, how I showed you before, call that database something like text clickers or something like that, and then maybe send a second strategic text to the interested parties only. One final report that I'll show you is the ability to pull delivery reports from the system. You do that by going back to reports, all reports, and then group reports. Again, it's not something I can show you properly because of the data protection with client data being on there, but ultimately the message would come in here. You'd be able to see sight of the actual content that was sent, obviously the date and time that message was sent, and then a little button would appear here that says View Stats. When you click through there, that's when you get a breakdown of your delivereds and undelivereds. That's not a report that we look at that message. It's actually a live report back from the network. So your network telling Textlocal that they've sent that message to a valid UK number. That pretty much wraps up what I wanted to show you today from a basic point of view. Before I finish, I've had a couple of questions that have come through. So hopefully I'll just be able to answer those quickly for you. The first was around sort of automation. So we discussed the ability to be able to schedule messages. I think there was a couple of questions relating to integration into a database. That's absolutely possible through the system. It's through something that's called an API. It stands for Application Program Interface. And in simple terms, it's us integrating our system with your CRM to enable an automatic process. So a really quick example of that, for those that aren't understanding of an API, would be maybe a doctor's surgery. Potentially the receptionist wouldn't even touch the front end that I've shown you today. If an appointment's made, they would just use their typical diary-based system. We've wrote some code that was joined the system up so that the day before, without that doctor's surgery doing anything, that our system will go in, interrogate that diary system, and send all of the next day's appointments reminders automatically for them. Okay, the next question we've had is regarding the links, and there was a question there as to whether they take up characters within the message as part of the 160. They absolutely do. You can use as many links in there as you wish. And to recap on that, they don't cost anything to use. They are part of the free functionality, but they will take up the characters. So just be mindful of that. But as I said to you before, you have got the attachment tool, which should be a great character save for you in itself, because you can put all of the content onto a Word document and then just load that in as a link, which will only typically take 10 characters. So it'll still give you a lot, great room for maneuver in terms of further content. And then you just send a very basic message asking them to click a link as a call to action. Just whilst we're on that, we did discuss the opt-out service as well. Bear in mind the opt-out service will also take characters, so please do be mindful of that when creating your message. Typically, as a rule of thumb, we've said to customers in the past, just be mindful of finishing a text around about 150 characters to allow for that opt-out. So that pretty much concludes everything for today. So once again, I thank you for joining me. Today was quite a generic session, understanding the basics. As I said throughout today's session, we will do further webinars, delving a bit deeper into certain aspects of the system around that additional functionality. If you don't want to wait for those sessions, feel free to contact me directly for a one-to-one demo. You might find that beneficial because we can clearly focus more on your individual requirements rather than a generic session like today. So we can share best practices and some, perhaps some case studies relevant to, similar like-minded businesses. You'll get me on my direct dial, which is 01244 573 246. That number again, 01244 573 246. Alternatively, feel free to email me. My email address is Andy, so that's ANDY, .Hemming, HEM for mother, ING, at textlocal.com. So that's TEXTlocal.com. Once again, thanks for joining us, and hope to speak to you all soon. Many thanks.